So, good morning and good evening for those of us in Africa and other places, so in Europe, and for those who are joining from the US and that other part of the world, good morning. Thank you for making time to be in this call. We begin now, and it's going to be both information sharing, but looking forward to quite an interactive session. And I will begin by allowing us to introduce the panelists. And because I have the mic, perhaps I have the privilege of doing it first. So my name is Samuel Munyuwin. I work at the African Institute for Children's Studies. We are a Pan-African and US-based organization. And we are keen to create platforms where, matters children can be solved, any challenges that are there. And I just want to point to one thing that really intrigues me or encourages me to do this work. One is on, there's a proverb that says, that a child who is not shown love, warmth enough will burn out the village so that he can feel the warmth. And that just makes me appreciate that it's not about my children being safe, but it's really about every child being in a good space. And I think increasingly, I'm also appreciating that for any parent, perhaps you even get more tense when the child gets to even 40 years old than now. So this is really to look at not the toddler, but what happens as the children grow. And I'm joined by a great team of panelists for this. So I'm going to invite each of them to introduce themselves and tell us what is it that really motivates them in what they are doing. So I'll begin with Jen. So you will tell us where you're taking the call from. Oh, I didn't say mine. I'm taking the call from Nairobi. But I was just in the US supporting our US office a few weeks ago. Over to you, Jen.
Hi, my name is Jane Kimani, and my background is health education, and I'm also a licensed alcohol and drug counselor, licensed in the state of Massachusetts, USA. I work with an organization called UHAI for Health. We work with African immigrants and refugees, connecting them to services so they can live fully and meaningful lives. And I'm very, very fortunate to be working right with my community here, making sure that they have access to the services they need. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Over to you, Gloria.
Oh, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Thank you so much. I'm Gloria, and I have developed the Parent Coaching Institute over 20 years now. It's a global organization that supports parents and also trains professionals in a coaching model. And what excites me or motivates me about this is to help parents discover and use their amazing strengths and their remarkable abilities in this unprecedented time of technology. And it's not going to get any easier. It's getting more complicated. And I have been so fortunate to work since 1987, really. I left my work as a school district administrator and teacher to do the work of supporting not only parents, but teachers and organizations in using technology for good, let's say, and to support our optimal development as humans. That's what motivates me. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. And Gloria, allow me to add that the only school I dropped out from was school but because I need to create more time for it. But you have a great school for parent coaches. I'm going to come back and complete my school.
I hope you do. It does take time, and you're a busy man. I know.
It's a great school. Over to you, Carol.
Hello, everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. It's such an honor to be here. My name is Carolyne Chakua, and I wear many hats. I'm a teacher. I teach at the university. I teach at Moi University, Educational Psychology Department. I'm also a licensed therapist here in Kenya, and I also have founded Stawi Camp for Wellbeing, which is an organization that just brings together people who care about children, who have the interest of children at heart. And so our job is to think through and have conversations around the best environment that we need to provide for children to thrive. So we are a team of coaches and teachers and anyone who loves children. And we do coaching programs, we do workshops, we hold conversations like this. And why I do this is because, again, like Gloria says, there's a lot of information out there. And we really just want to be able to break down complex things into very simple terms. We normalize conversations around mental health, try as much as possible to break the stigma around that, and just look for very simple tools for parents so that they can thrive as their children thrive as well. So it's such an honor to be here.
Thank you, Carol. At this point, I want to just point to some things that have motivated this webinar. So one, anyone listening to this conversation will appreciate that this team here are, people who are experienced in delivering programs and services directly to parents. And there's been statistics that is going around. I'll take the example of the US. One of the statistics we've looked at is the suicide rates among teenagers and young adults. It is very scary when you look at data from the CDC that says for every 10 young people who are aged 10 to 24, one thinks seriously about suicide. The other data that, still on the same matter is that among the high school girls, 3 in 10 have considered suicide. Among the boys, it's 1 out of 7. And that suicide is the third leading cause of death for teens. And I'm sure there are many other things. So we set out and did a bit of, a survey. I'm going to share my screen briefly and just what is it that we are seeing from the survey. I want to appreciate the parents who shared this. And I know we don't do this just because we are parents, but because we know a child somewhere who may benefit from this. So we had some parents from the US, from Kenya, others didn't indicate, from Bahrain, but I'm sure this information should reach out to many more parents, including in Europe. We are focusing on parenting in diaspora because there are certain dynamics that I think impact that. And the data we've shared, a lot of them are diasporians. If you look at the second chart, I hope my screen is visible. Jen, confirm to me.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Nice. So there are many factors that will be a challenge to a parent of many issues. There is the communication and emotional connection. It really looks like one of those that are highest ranked as a big challenge. And we know as people who've worked with children that from the age of 13 to about 24, the need to disconnect and establish as an individual is very strong. And so perhaps that's really something we want to look at. Gloria, I'm glad you're here because screen time and tech boundaries is one of the second ones that is really high. How do we support the young people to navigate peer pressure and social circles? Okay, discipline and boundaries. And again, all of you here are people who are really great at this. Mental health concerns, anxiety, mood changes, cultural identity and conflict, which is really important whenever you are raising a child, especially those who've moved when they already had some period growing up in another culture, and then academic issues and stress. So these look like the major ones. And I want to ask Jen to begin with this. Jen, you
Yes.
work with communities. Is
Right.
this what you see? What else do you see as major challenges on this? And from time to time, I'll bring back my screen. So for now, I'll drop it and then bring it back. Go ahead.
So thank you so much, African Institute for Children's Studies with Sam for bringing, kind of like bringing all of us together. What parents mentioned in the little study that we did is in compliance with the study we did in 2018. UHI for Health, we worked with Boston University School of Public Health, and we did a need assessment within the community to find out why were our youth struggling. And of course, those are some of the things that came about. One of the things was communication. And the youth are not like our generation, whereby when we ask question, we kind of like shy and we struggle around it. The youth will just drop the ball. And so the communication between us and them is very, very different. Like they have a hard time coming to our parent and telling them something because either we're not gonna be able to validate their feelings, and or because of what we learned from also our parents, we bring it into the parenting, the now parenting. And they gave us an example, like how we keep, even in diaspora, we keep telling our kids what a hard time we had when we were growing up. We used to go to school without shoes. And this one youth was, even as we go to school without shoes, but you don't care to know what shoes we are talking about. That means they are also having their own struggles, but we are not keen to listening to what struggles they have. Another phrase that I still remember is one kid said, we don't want your presence, we want your presence. And that stuck very much with me because in diaspora, you find that we are working 3 jobs. We are not even sleeping. And when you are not working those jobs, we are either resting or sleeping because the day is still having 24 hours. And when these kids come from school, either we are in a shift or we are sleeping. So we are not having time with them. But what do? We overcompensate for them. So you look at a kid, they have a better wig than what the mother is wearing. They have a modern phone than what the mother is using. You see the type of shoe they are wearing, totally different from what because we are trying to kind of like buy them or bribe them because we are feeling bad that we are not having time with them. So the kids were, we need your presence. We need to build time with you. And recently I did this program called Hope, Health Outcomes Through Positive Experiences. It's an evidence-based program from Tufts University. And it's talking about how can we build positive experiences in our children. If we can look back for us who are aged and we have kids of our own and look at our parents, what are the positive memories that we can remember? Probably not a lot, because we were never hugged. We were never told that we were loved. It doesn't mean they did not love us, but they did not articulate that to us. And the kid nowadays, it's, do you have that time for me? If every time I come home, you are not home, you are working, who's going to become my friend? Either someone out there or the screen. And then we start complaining about the screen. So communication is very, very important, knowing how the day was for our child. And sometimes, if it's my son who is 16, I'm like, how was your day? Good. How was your day? Good. So as a parent, we need to learn how to ask open-ended questions. And is there something interesting that happened in your day? And sometimes I'm like, in a scale of 0 to 10, how was your day? And there will be like 6. Then I would want to know, why was it not an 8 or a 10? And the other day, this kid came to my house and I was like, how was your day at school? And he was like, oh, good. And then I was like, scale of 0 to 10, he was like a 6. And I'm like, what happened? Oh, another kid hit me. And at that point, I started asking questions. Did you tell your mom? Did you tell your teacher? Was it accidental? What happened? He's like, no, they don't like me. And at that point, I had to contact the mother and I'm like, you need to follow up with the teacher in class what's happening, because that's how kids start getting bullied. And we have lost so many children into bullying. So when I still on communication, I also want to say that our culture makes it so difficult for us to be able to communicate fully with our kids. Because sometimes we feel as a parent, you have to unlearn what we had from our parents and learn. And one of the things that I remember growing up is being a firstborn. I was the one taking care of all my siblings. And my mother would be either going to the farm or going to the market, and he'd be like, I have left the kids. I want to find you that you have burnt the house or you have burnt them. I'm like, what? So they were so sarcastic. Seriously, if you tell the kid now that, they will burn that house because our kids are not even having the same mental agility and the resilience that we had. They take your word at at its value. And so we have to stop being sarcastic. We have to invest. And I'm thankful for the parents who have logged in today, because we have to invest time to learning and be able to become better parents. When you talk about communication, how do you communicate with your kids? Do you validate them? If a child tells you they are feeling depressed, they are feeling nervous, they are feeling anxious, how do you help them? Because sometimes kids come to me and I was like, I talked to my mom about that. She's like, it's just in my mind. I should just forget about that. There is nothing like that in our family. So I don't have anyone to talk to. And so when it comes to parenting, we need to stop and think about how we are going to respond. You don't even have to respond the same very second with a child. You can let them know, let me think over it, let me sleep over it, and I'll come back to you and let you know. And it's okay to say that. I was taught as a health educator, sometimes you don't have to have an answer. And it's okay to tell a child, I don't have an answer for that right now, but I'm gonna go find out and I'm gonna come back to you and let you know. But let us create safe spaces for our children. Let us give them the right answers. Let us communicate with them, validate how they are feeling, even if we are not feeling the way, because that's their feeling, validate it, but also let them have that safe space. And when I talk to kids, they tell me, you know what? My parents keep telling me, stop doing this, don't do this, but they don't tell me why. I've had kids telling me, my parents tell me not to do drugs. They don't tell me why. My parents tell me not to have sex, but they don't tell me why. We need to be able to educate our kids, not just telling them why. When I was growing up in Kenya, I could not even stand, like how if a guy want to make friends with you, you would stand by the roadside and start talking. I would never do that because I thought by standing with them, I'll get pregnant. That's how bad it was, because I was never given any information about that. And so but my parents is like, don't talk to the young men, don't talk to the young men. Tell me why.
Mm.
Tell me why am I not supposed to take drugs? And if we don't have that information, that is okay. Then you can direct these kids to someone who do not have that information. I'll just leave there and have someone else.
Very good points. You remind me two things. Let me begin with the last one on just giving the wrong reasons. It's even worse to give wrong whys. So I met this professor in Monrovia, and she said, growing up, they were told if you sleep with a boy, a tree will grow on your stomach. And so, they went out as younger girls to see, will this tree really grow? So you see, misinformation is even worse than not informing at all. And another a good point you've reminded me, a young man, we recently had, opportunities for them as teenagers in church to really give us their feedback. And they went and sat and they told us, when you parents tell us that we are so privileged, you love us because you've taken us to school, you bought us shoes. I said, those are my rights. You're supposed to fulfill them. And so we asked them, so what should we do to show you that we really love you? Exactly what you said, presence. Okay. And I mean, while it sounded like an easier attainable, but it's very difficult in today's parenting. And so with that, I want Carol to take us on the next one, but let me share the next chart in our thing. Now that we see what are the challenges there, and it's confirmed communication seems to be a major one, we asked the parents who took the survey, how confident are they in being able to especially address the mental health issues? And as you can see in this graph, or the chart here, 5 is the highest. Well, perhaps it's good that we are having a majority at around just a little half confident on that, while low confidence is really also there. So I want to ask you, Dr. Carolyne Chakua, looking at those confidence levels, and knowing how important mental health is, looking at the statistics we shared earlier on, what would be, in your opinion, some first 3 signals that you will tell that a child is struggling with their mental health issues? How will a parent, what can they do to help respond to that? And you could, piggyback on some of what Jen has mentioned, your own experiences. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I'm not surprised at the statistics. One of the things I've realized is the kind of parent who comes for these sessions, they're actually not necessarily low in confidence. They're actually doing pretty well, but they are always seeking more information. And that's always where I start with parents. I'm like, you're here. That says a lot about you as a parent. It says that you're seeking information. Yes, you may be struggling with 1, 2, 3 things, but you're here, you're open to it. And so that's also just something I celebrate every parent who is here, that we are already doing so much. And so it's just about cultivating what's already in you and drawing from the strengths that you have and the resources that you already have. In terms of what to look out for, when I talk to parents and I tell them, you look for, are they withdrawing? You look for mood swings, you look for maybe drop in performance, and they're like, but that's just how teenagers are. So what's different, So let me just pull back a little bit and say, whenever we are looking at whether a mental health issue is problematic, we look at 3 things. We look at the frequency. How often is it happening? Because we are all, mental health, when we look at it, it's on a spectrum. And therefore, we can't put a line and say, this is now the line we draw. But it could be specific behaviors, like, again, maybe withdrawal, drop in performance. Sometimes they verbalize, they complain, they say, this is how I'm feeling, I'm so tired. All those things, spending a lot of time on the screen, again, something that's happening all the time. So how do I know if they're withdrawing? How do I know it's because they have a mental health issue? So number 1, we look at the frequency. How often is it happening? So that's one. Number two, we look at the age appropriateness. Sometimes we expect certain behaviors just naturally because of what is happening in that season of their lives. You'll expect a lot more ups and downs and upheavals when it comes to moods when they are teenagers. Okay, so age appropriateness, you also look. So you look at the frequency, we look at the age appropriateness, but then also we look at the intensity. How intense is it? If it's anger outbursts, how intense are they? How is it preventing them from everyday issues? So rather than just say, look at the things like, are they withdrawing? Do they have mood swings? Are they irritable? Are they anxious? All those things are there and could be there because it's circumstantial, because of maybe the things that they're going through in the family. But how you want to know if it is a problem is how frequent is it, how intense is it, and how is it age appropriate. And the only way you can know that is because you have been connecting with them, back to what Jane says. It's because you've been listening, it's because you've been validating. Then you're able to tell the difference between this is just the normal one, and even just the tool that Jane gave us between 1 to 10. That's a very good way of even figuring out how intense is it. If they say 9 several times over a couple of, a period of time, then we begin to sense maybe we can begin to pull it out. So I think all that should be in the context of our relationship. That's the only way we will be able to tell apart if something is a problematic issue. But I always piggyback and say, for the most part now, these days, with all the information that we have, I think sometimes and I've seen that in my practice a lot, sometimes we tend to take the children to see someone too soon. So for me, that's a caution that, again, it speaks into the lack of confidence in the parents. And so even if a child is sent to me, I usually, first of all, want to see the parent first and just be like, what is going on with you? Do you know that you can actually handle this? Because when we push the children to see experts and professionals too soon, there comes the label, and then we sort of get detached. It's from a place of fear. So I will fix the child, right? And children are very easy to influence, but they'll go back to the same environment that there's a lot of anxiety, there's all those things that's going on. So I always invite the parent to come, especially when you're going through transitions, maybe moving to a new country, or maybe divorce, separation, all that. Let's not be in such a hurry to send the children to see somebody. I'll stop it there and take it back to you.
That's really a good point, which I think will fit pretty well with Gloria. Gloria, when you chime in, screen technology and how to create boundaries on that, I'm glad that you started talking about screens, almost 40 years back. I wonder what part of your prophecy has come true, looking at what you saw coming, and what do you see as some of the things that, how can parents play a role in this? How do we just manage the transition from elementary, middle school, and all that, and prepare parents for this? What do you see as navigating this challenge?
There's so much to say. It's such a difficult challenge. It has so many variables. And part of what I tried to focus on initially, if we say, well, how can we get into a healthy routine about technology? The first and foremost thing I really help parents with is to consider how the child, now we're talking about ages 13 to 18, and then from 18 to 24, it's sort of a different kind of thing, but basically, how are they perceiving their self-concept as a person in charge of technology? Are they seeing themselves as empowered and using technology as a tool? And one question to keep in mind is, what do we gain? What is gained that makes you a better person when you're doing such and such, when you're on social media? What are you learning that will grow you as a better person? And helping parents to align what they value. I mean, we have a crisis of meaning, obviously, with the suicide. We have a crisis of children and teens feeling belonging. If they aren't with the parents and the family, how do they feel belonging? And technology comes right in and says, oh, you can belong to me. You can belong to the influencers because you're important here on TikTok. You have something to say. Well, are you important? You're important to help me with the chores. We need you at home. We need you to support our family. You are an important member of this family. And so I try to reframe just a simple thing that chores are not chores anymore. They're a contribution as relationship. They're a contribution that makes you understand you're in relationship to this family and you belong. And so maybe you can't start it, at 13, you started at 3, and it moves on, but you can begin things and help the 13-year-old, the 14-year-old to feel they are a member here. They belong here. The family first. The parents, and it's hard to believe it, but it's true. We are the most influencers, right, of our kids, even when they're teenagers and they want us. And both Jane and Carol said, how important it is for the presence of the parent and how hard it is with the more stress economically, resource, health issues. I mean, the stress on parents is exponentially more difficult than it was decades ago. And, as technology and the power structure basically invades our mental and health and our spiritual development, we're left floundering like salmon swimming upstream, exhausted, depleted, because we've never been in this situation before, ever. You have the industrialists of the turn of the 20th century creating railroads and so forth and becoming very wealthy and having the power. And Carnegie created libraries, right? They created the steel, the whatever, the railroad, all of this, all industry. They were not inside the minds of our children. They were not telling our kids what to do and what's meaningful, what's important, where you find yourself belonging. And technology elite, very few, five people. It's just bizarre. And it's a justice issue for me. It's a social justice issue for me as well, because we're all victims of something we're not in control of. And so parents are scrambling. How do you stay human, let alone let our divine qualities come out in this kind of a society? Where does it end? And so with AI, and I've thought about this every day of my life since 1987, I totally understand the stresses. And so getting back to what can we possibly do to support the optimal development of our humans, our little humans, when you're an adolescent. Edward Deci and Richard Ryan are researchers that have worked since the 80s, since I was teaching, actually, and they're still around. Edward Deci, I think he is, he's on the board of the Institute of Coaching, which is out of Harvard. Now the executive coaches and the life coaches have found out what we educators have learned about. Anyway, DC and Ryan have done incredible over 40 years of research about how do you grow this adolescent mind and how do you support the optimal development. And actually it starts early, it starts whenever, but they call it self-determination theory. And they look at three things: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. How well is the child, this budding teen, this budding young adult, understanding themselves as an autonomous human being? How do they feel competent? Where are their competencies? Are their competencies only in technology or maybe sports, maybe art, whatever, right? Are they well-rounded? And how do they relate to others? So those questions can come up parents can ask those questions around those three areas with the three areas of technology, because I like to break it down. We have the educational use of technology as a tool. We have the entertainment. We all want to sit back and just relax and watch a movie. And we have the social aspect. Here we are using technology. This is fabulous. And we're using it for all, well, maybe we're not entertaining people so much, but we're educating and we're connecting. How can we as parents and families and communities put on our thinking caps and say, how do we support our teens? For instance, having a Zoom meeting with teens in our community to figure out what we're going to do for the churches or the temples or the mosque. How are we going to support the elderly? How are we supporting the homeless? There are teens begging to contribute, who want to feel like they are part of communities. And I know there must be people doing this. And parents, how do parents do it when they're just struggling to survive? It's not a one-size-fits-all deal at all. But what I'm saying is, how do we support? And it's more of a question, but the routine can be parents asking themselves and asking their teens, how is this making you a better person? And then talking about it and saying, with the educational aspect, what you've learned. I follow up with weekly meetings. You talk about the boundaries, and 5 hours a day, 7 hours a day, if they're on a screen at school, is it too much? For some kids it is. For some it may not be. Where is their health? Where is their physical abilities? Are they, are they physically in good health? And a lot of times that's my entry door when I work with parents. One parent said, have the pediatrician tell him he's 16 and he's overweight and he wasn't listening to his mom, but mom talked to the pediatrician and the pediatrician said, I'm going to make it really clear. He has to get off those video games in order to walk and to do this. We need help as parents. Get our support from other professionals who will be the voice, because that's the nature of adolescence, isn't it? Move away from your parent, don't listen. You have to become autonomous. So all adolescents need a mentor other than the screen, need other adults. We've lost the tribe, we've lost the uncles, we've lost the aunts. They're not around, and technology, TikTok, waltzes in and takes their place. Completely, again, unjust. And so how do we do that? And most parents I work with know, they absolutely know somebody who can support them. So that's the last thing I'll say. I know I rambled, but
No, actually you fitted pretty well with this other response that we had in the survey. We were asking what are the challenges for someone in the diaspora or in a new culture, trying to integrate, the identity concerns, and isolation is big. And Gloria, when you say that the social media or the screen is actually offering the alternative and making these young people feel like they belong, it is no wonder that it's very easy to go into the wrong way. We've seen how young people have ended up in suicide because they were literally being coached into that by someone in an online space. But if that made them feel like they are not isolated, you know, so I'll come back to you in the second question, just to build on that thought and really ask about this. I'm glad Grace has joined us. Grace, I don't know whether you've taken a moment to breathe. I know you were just coming in, but I would love to hear from you on what you think on this screen issue and all that. What is it as a young person do you see as the gap in parents? Okay. You can speak now, but if you're not ready, I'll give you a few minutes to take a breath. But you can introduce yourself first, Grace.
Oh, sorry.
Hello, I am Grace. Yeah, I think I was actually just thinking about this as you spoke, but I think that, social media can definitely be a tool, but then it's not, it's not the permanent solution. Like you were saying, there needs to be, a balance between, using your social media. And I think that the most important thing for parents is to just make sure, even though there's going to be conversations that are, difficult or not easy to speak on, just having that conversation with the child and ensuring them, like, even if something happens to you, I want you to feel comfortable to talk to me. And yeah, I will have to think about it more.
Yeah.
I think that is very
Conversation.
important. Yeah.
Yes. Jen, because you're seated next to Grace, maybe we appreciate here that as a parent, especially in the diaspora, and I think anyone really, the whole question of how to balance between the many spaces that the child lives in, the school, the peers, my own values as a parent. What's your take on that? How can you do a balancing in this cultural integration?
So thank you so much for this question, and thank you, Gloria, for the input on it. So I think it was last year I attended the Summer School of Addiction that's held at Worcester State University. And one of the classes that I attended was cyber psycho something. And it was talking about the screen. And they were talking about the same addiction that is with individuals who are using opioids like fentanyl or cocaine is the same, because it's the working on the brain, the dopamine, and dopamine is the part of the blood that gives of the brain that gives us the pressure and the motivation. And they were talking about how these games are created, games and all the sounds that you hear. There are so many people who come together, including psychologists. That means that sound you hear, it does something to your brain. And that is why you find, like, when a notification comes, that little sound, or what you want to do, even if you're driving, it doesn't matter, is to look at the screen. And then when it happens oftenly, your mind is conditioned and there is no looking back. And that is why we are finding there was a video that was circulating last week whereby a 12-year-old vandalized their apartment. Everything in the house was broken because the mother took away the phone from them. And when you look at that, it's like this kid had lost their mind. Like, and I've seen it even with my kids. Like, I take the iPad from them and they look, I'm like, is this my son for real? Hopefully they're not gonna see this video. So it is something that it's in them. And if we do not handle this, it's just gonna get worse, because now we are going to be referring our children not for chemical addiction, but for screen addiction, something that we can be able to help them regulate. And we're going probably to learn more about regulation. The other day, I was just watching when I was driving, and I saw this woman and with her small child both of them are holding their screen and they're just walking and everyone is on their phone. And I'm like, what about if there's a ditch? They're gonna just fall into it, you know. And Carol mentioned about that. I think it's Gloria who mentioned about that. Monkey see, monkey do. So if we are not setting a good example, then the kids are following us. The kids, we tell them about the screen. It's like, but my mom is always on the phone. My dad is always on the phone. So everyone is eating. Have you ever gone to a restaurant and you find a whole family for dinner and everyone is on their screen as they wait for the food to come? That is how bad we are. So it has to start from us parents. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Carol, you've been in the space as Stawi, preparing parents, giving them tools on how do we set these boundaries, even with this digital issue. And other spaces, really, how do we have meaningful communication? So the big question from parents is, are there tools that work for setting discipline, the boundaries? How do we deal with all these anxieties that come by pulling away, tools such as the social media? Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm going to do a commercial plug first and say I have a whole series on conscious discipline, and it's five sessions that can help you to just, so the sort of a summary of that is, first of all, we need to think about what we think about discipline. We carry a lot of our own issues and our own belief systems around discipline, such as it has to be painful for it to work. You've got to say many things. It comes with a lot of shame. There's a lot of drama around discipline that now causes us to feel like we are not being effective if we do it calmly, And so that's one of those beliefs that we just need to put away, because really, when you're calm and your child is calm, that's when the most learning happens. And discipline is equal to learning. So if we think about discipline as learning, if you think about discipline as providing the right environment for a child to learn, then you realize that one, learning is ongoing. And so this thing of telling your child, how many times do I have to repeat? The answer there is what environment have you created for learning to happen? So let's forget about how many times we have to repeat, because most of the time we hit it when my anxiety is high, my frustration is high, and the child's frustration is high. That time we are both so triggered, no learning will happen. And yes, then you will continue. That's why you'll continue repeating. So it's back to you as a parent. It becomes a parent issue still. And so so it's to sit back and ask yourself, what's your belief around discipline? What's your belief around setting boundaries? And then you realize that 80% of the time, 80% of setting boundaries should happen during the calm times. Now we need to talk about what kind of environment do we set during that 80%. In fact, the more I speak to parents, the more I'm thinking probably it's 90%, maybe even 95%. I keep increasing it because I just see the power and the value of setting the right environment during the calm times. And so there is always, of course, your 10% when something has happened and you need to do something about it right away. But a lot of it is still dependent on the foundation that you have built during the calm times. So during the calm times, that's when, and of course, again, we have all talked about times for connection. That is the time you have those conversations. And I tell parents, and because it's also, I have a 16-year-old, our best conversations when I really want to influence him is when we are both calm. He will agree to anything at that point because because, when we are bonding and we are connecting, oxytocin is produced. And oxytocin is that bonding hormone or bonding chemical that causes us to be more cooperative. So leverage on those times when you're bonding, when you're having good conversations. And I'll tell him, you know what, okay, holidays are coming up. Let's have a conversation about how it looks like, how the schedule looks like coming up, because he loves the screen. He does a lot of content and the educational stuff on the screen, but then of course he also has his own games and all that. And so we talk about it. And sometimes he'll come up with rules that are stricter than what I would have given him, because I have leveraged on a time that both of us are calm. And that time we can talk. And even as we are talking and we're having all those conversations, we say, okay, then, so this is the schedule and this is how long you'll spend on this and that. Okay, fine. All right. So we know it's going to be hard. We know this conversation is not going to just be sweet, even when things are happening. We know, and then we've talked about what's happening in the brain, and I bring up that conversation as well. When the brain is revved up and everything, you don't want to leave this thing. You know just how hard it is to leave this thing, right? Yeah, and you give them facts, because facts are very important for them. So the point here is to leverage on the 80% or 90% or 95, depending on how much time you have. Come up with the rules, come up with all, and then also come up with things that now, if this does not happen, what are the consequences? You come up with the consequences together. And I'm telling you, if you are connecting with your child and you're leveraging on the 80-85%, they will agree. They'll agree to the consequences. So it becomes so much easier to bring that up during the 20% when something has happened. Yes, emotions will still run high for both of you, because you can't believe that we had this conversation and he is still doing this. But I'm ready for it. I know, because I understand how difficult it is. And so at that point, there will still be pushback. At that point, they'll be like, please forgive me, or please 10 more minutes and all that. But that's where you show up calmly and just remind them, hey, we said this. So this is it. And or like I would walk in and my son has gone beyond his 10 minutes, and I'm not going to go into a 2-hour lecture like I used to before. Okay, I've worked on it. And what I'll do, I'll just be like, oh, I see you have decided to take away tomorrow's screen time. Then I move on. I'm not going to ask him to get off the screen. I'm not going to start making a lot of noise. I'll just make a point. It's a note. I'm just taking note. I'm like, oh, it seems like tomorrow you're not going to have your screen time, because we already have that conversation. So I think just showing up in a way that is calm and detached during those moments also brings down the energy. So it comes from thinking about, what environment do I want to create? How do I train this child to remember? For example, if I know he has a hard time getting off the screen, we have a clock, we have a timer. You're teaching so many other things when you tell them, okay, put up the timer there, so that this timer will help you, and it starts giving you a countdown. That's what we call, like now in our conscious discipline classes, setting up your child to succeed. Because again, we are always looking to catch our kids doing wrong, because we've already made, but let's set them up for success. Let's set them up. I say life doesn't have to be difficult. Let's set up our children to succeed so that we don't have to keep. But you know where you're coming from. Life just has to be hard and all that. So it goes back again to our attitude and to our beliefs about discipline.
And Gloria, that reminds me what we learned in your class: what you focus on grows. So if we are focusing on catching the children on the bad things, then we will. But before I go to Gloria, there's a relevant question for you, Carol. I think it's a follow-up. Maybe it's better you answer it now. And Katha is asking, if I've been on the other side, question, raising voice, how do I reverse all this? You can answer it after a few minutes, but do you want to take it right now?
Yeah, I can take it right now. I think it's to, our kids respond to where we are. Okay. And so it's in the small, consistent ways of repairing that we get there. So usually I tell a parent, okay, so let's breathe in and out, because we carry a lot of guilt based on those things that you have done, like what you're describing, Katha. So if you're constantly carrying the guilt, then it's very hard to even try to make any amends. So first of all, breathe in and out. Give yourself a lot of compassion, because you only knew what you are only working with what you knew. And I think someone famous says, now that we know better, we do better. Okay, so start in the small little steps. Go back and figure out what is it that drives me to be reactive. So that brings in the self-awareness, so that now you're able to work through what are those things that are triggering you, what are those things that are activating you to be able to react the way you react. So begin to do that self-awareness work, self-reflective work, and then there's room for apologizing. Okay, and that is something that, again, we haven't been socialized to do, because making apologies means weakness. It means that you're showing your child they can just walk all over you. But how do they learn how to apologize if they don't learn it from you? When we say monkey see, monkey do, it's also in the positive things, you know. And so find a way, find time to say, you know what, this and that happened. And when I say, when it comes to a repair conversation, you also talk about what was going on with you. You know, when I saw you do this, I got really frustrated because I'm worried. I'm worried that if you go down this road, you're not gonna do 1, 2, 3. So come from a place of I'm human too. So when I'm yelling, it's because something happened, and I'm just learning to do better. When I coach parents, I tell them, look, you can start by saying, you know what, I'm seeing a coach and I'm beginning to learn how to work with you and to respond to you better. And so let's give each other, let's give each other space to be able to learn these things. So those are the few things that can come through.
I love that as a parent, I'm not a super human. I'm human, I'm emotional. And the whole thing just around the breathing and all that. And Gloria, I want to take this to you. You know, being a parent coach and training us as a parent coaches, what do you see as some of the things that parents can use to regulate themselves, you know, so that they're not going overboard? How do they build on what is in? Because I think the parent coaching has really emphasized that we are not bringing things outside. There's a lot in you.
There's a lot in us and a lot in parents to gain confidence. I guess, you know, setting the boundary, as Carol beautifully articulated, has two really important components for me, is our confidence as parents, and then the clarity that we have of why we want this boundary. Why it's important, and being authentic, as you all have been mentioning, about our failures, our emotions, when we overdo it, so that why I'm yelling is because I love you so much and I want the best for you, and I don't think this amount of time is the best for you. And really explaining that, especially with the younger teens, because at age 16, the brain will have a little bit of a different focus, and it might get a little easier with driver's license and all. The hardest time for me for parenting was between ages 13 and 15, my two sons. And so we want to hone in on why and the meaning behind it with every age, but the younger the teen, the more they do need that boundary. At our institute, we just conducted a teen and parent survey on social media and screen use that was in the US, Turkey and the Middle East, Greece, and parts of Europe and US. And what we haven't compiled all the results yet, but in analyzing it and looking at it, one of the questions we had was for the older teens, it was for ages 13 through 18. Did you want your parents to, did you get the cell phone at the right time? Or do you think you were too young? Or, and so many kids said, I was too young. I wish I would have had it soon. I wish I would. And it just punctuates how the parents, how the children want the boundary. They want it. And they want us to set that. So having that knowledge and clarity about the why, I think can support the confidence, and the confidence can be supported with the clarity. And the other thing that we work with a lot is really supporting our strengths to come to the fore. You know, positive psychology has so much dovetail to conscious discipline and positive discipline, where we're not only trying to help the parent discover, name, and claim, you know, their strengths, but to take those strengths and use them during the difficult challenges. So you're such a great listener. You're telling me what you do with your team at work. You know, so many moms are, well, let's see how you can do this, strengthen this skill with your 16-year-old or your 12-year-old. Well, wait a minute, it's really different. Yeah, it is, but let's look at this. And there's ways to cross over our strengths as parents in so many other dimensions with our kids. We don't have to collapse into, as Carolyne Jane pointed out, you know, into being so dramatic about it. Being more matter of fact. And that's my last point. What I found worked, two things for adolescents about screens, and it was that talking about it, not in the heat of it, not in the heat when I wanted to get them rid. And what I discovered first through the research, and then it was magic, having one-on-one time with each of them, even though there were only 2 kids in the family, taking time, one-on-one time. And they would even when they were 15 or whatever, they would want to go out to pizza, but we did it separately. We did it every other week, or my husband did it with one and I would do it with the other. We go somewhere else, because boy, what kids will reveal when there aren't distractions and their brother isn't there listening. Oh yeah, we want to do things as family, but what came out, just giving them the space and asking questions from our curiosity. And both my sons have, you know, they're adults now and doing great. And one is a media scholar. And I'll tell you what he does with his 20-year-old kids that he teaches at the college. He talks about social media, and he'll, you know, see them on their phone or whatever. But he also he's talking about the visual and the print. And he'll bring in a big book, a thick book, and he puts it on his desk and says, "This, kids, is a dictionary." And he would say, "You'd be surprised, Mom, how many 21-year-olds have never seen a dictionary." Yeah. And they go, "What? What's a dictionary? What?" And then he compares it, you know, to how you find the words on, you know, Word Hippo or whatever on an app and this kind of thing. But it's like, here's the thing, getting out of this drama around media. It's a different form. The visual, the social media is a different form. Talking on Zoom is a different form than meeting over coffee at Starbucks. It's there, we have different forms, and now we're going to have AI and all these other different forms. So we don't want to create that, oh, we can't do this. Well, maybe, you know, our forefathers, our cave people that lived in caves would never imagine what we're doing now with Zoom. And so our consciousness as human beings is rising, and our abilities are rising. And I think we're all called to, hey, have confidence in our incredible universe of our brains, that we can't compete with instantaneous information of artificial intelligence, but we can compete in other ways as human and divine beings on this planet that are just babies in understanding our incredible potential. And so I try to help parents see their amazing strengths and their kids' amazing strengths, and harness those strengths and their potential to resolve the challenges. And they can. That, I know that.
Wow. I think with the challenge that AI is giving us on jobs and other things, the one is, I don't know, they're taking time to train it, is the emotional connection. Yes. And it's, I think it's good that that's really what we feel in as parents first, so that the calmness is there, the space to be a human and all that. I want Grace to just chime in here. Grace, you've had a bit more of this conversation now. As a younger person, as a Gen Z, is there something we're just completely missing out?
I think the most important thing, like even what we were going back on just apologizing, even just from my experience, I know, if I have a conflict with my parents and they come back and apologize, it makes me feel, better, and it makes me also reflect on my own mistakes, and we're able to, talk about it. And I also think, like, just being human. I think sometimes as parents, we look at our parents and we think they're so perfect, they've never made mistakes, because they don't sometimes share about those same experiences that we might be going through. But they were teenagers once too at some point. And I always just find that vulnerability and just sharing makes me also feel like, okay, I'm not alone in this. It's not just me. I have someone as a support that I can talk to, my parent, they can advise me. And yeah.
Beautiful. Great, great. So I know there's so many things we can't handle now, and this was really an introduction and to point us to resources, be able to share contacts even on this. Maybe I will encourage Jane, Gloria, and Carol to put in any contact information in the chat box. But I'm also going to share some tools, and maybe Gloria, I know you shared something with me. Can I put it on the screen and you just talk over it briefly?
Sure,
Some
sure.
tools.
If
Okay.
it's relevant, if you think it's relevant, sure.
It is for sure. Just a moment, let me get it. Okay, there. Just a moment. You want to speak about this briefly, and then I'll also invite colleagues. So we'll do one quick round as we are looking out for any questions, any tools you want to point out to, any opportunities for more support.
So,
Go ahead, Gloria.
this was a compilation from a book I wrote called Screen Smarts, A Family Guide to Media Literacy. And so what I did was take out the ideas, and if you go up through it, go ahead and just keep going up. And so there's 100 different activities, and um, they're different. Like 20 are for children ages 3 to 5, 20 for children. So there are some for older kids, 20, and they're simple activities that we can use just talking. Some of them may not be, I mean, now with AI, like I used to tell my kids, you're smarter than anything you see on TV. You're smarter than that. You can write that commercial. You can write the ending to this movie. Now let's stop the movie and and think about what would be the ending. So just engaging. But now we can't really say our kids are smarter than AI, can we? Or maybe I want to say that. But there could be things that you could adapt as well. And I need to, update it. But for AI,
Okay.
I need to update everything. I don't, yeah. Anyway, you could keep going and then, um, yeah. So anyway, so they're very simple
Okay.
things
Okay.
that,
I'll share it in the chat box, and I'll also give my email in case anyone here wants to. I mean,
if they want,
Gloria, you provide your email too, so that.
sure,
And Gloria,
I
now
can
that you
provide.
have the mic, do you mind speaking very briefly about your parent coaching and how people can access coaches all over the world?
Sure. Briefly, after being a consultant, when I left my work in the 87 through the 90s, I was a consultant working on technology issues. And all the time, parents would come up after me. There'd be a long line, after my workshops or whatever, asking me all these questions. And it was like, I can do so much in a workshop or a book, but really, how do I help the parents with their unique situation, their children, what is going on in their families, their values, all of the things? And so that's when I started researching parent coaching and developing a model with the university I was teaching at the time. Spent 3 years developing and synthesizing research about how do we change, how can we help parents grow their potential, basically, and how we change during challenges. And Parent Coaching Institute was basically underway around 2003. And so it's grown, and it's a year-long training program for family professionals, people who already have a toolbox to support parents, but now want a coaching process. And what I had done, I had studied appreciative inquiry, and that has a track record of 40 years for a change process. And it's a 4-stage process. So it's a framework for people working with families to ask questions that build on significant positive change that actually activates positive psychology and activates strengths. So that has grown. It started in Washington State, where I am, and now it's grown globally. And so parents can find parent coaches if they're interested in exploring that. All of our parent coaches give a complimentary consultation to see if it's a right fit and the right service. And that is on our website, and I can put the website.
And I've shared a link with the directory.
Yeah, okay.
On the chat box. I think in Kenya, you have about 7 or so certified parent coaches.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure they're all over across in different states in the US and in Europe and Asia too. Well, Carol, do you want to speak to any tools you want to refer people to, how they can contact you and more, including the camp? You host very beautiful camps for young.
Thank you. Let me share this tool here. And it speaks directly to what Nkatha brought out. And this is a self-awareness tool that I work with, and something that you can just begin to think about. And I hope Nkatha, it's okay for me to use your example in the question that you had. You find yourself reacting and saying all these things. And it's just to understand that your reaction is only 10%. And everything else that you really need to understand why goes below that 10%. There are feelings and there are sensations. I felt frustrated. I felt angry, and that's why I reacted. That's why I gave a 2-hour lecture. That's the example I like giving, especially for us moms. We go on and on and on and on, but it's because something is happening in us, and we are really feeling really pushed to let off the energy, and we are feeling somewhat threatened. So being able to understand that there are feelings and the sensations that cause you to react, but beneath the feelings and sensations are your thoughts. So we make up stories about our children's behaviors. The stories like they will fail in life, or I am a bad parent, and all that. So it's just to invite you to ask yourself, what am I thinking? What stories, what conclusions am I making about this child's behaviors? Because those conclusions are the ones that are leading to the feelings of anger, and it's causing you to react. If you are feeling calm about it, if you had, like we keep saying here, if you had a thought that I got this, then very unlikely that you will react. But our thoughts come from our core beliefs, and these now are the belief systems. For example, the beliefs about discipline that we have, the beliefs about ourselves, the beliefs about children, how we have been raised. Those are like our conscious scripts that we read. And so this is just an invitation to begin to look and ask yourself, what's really in my heart? What's going on? What are some of the things in my past that I need to work on? What are some things that are happening in the present? Because this is what, when our children misbehave, they trigger our reactions. But the real reason we are reacting like that has very little to do with the misbehavior, but it has everything to do with what in our past has been triggered, what is going on in our present circumstances, the stresses, the things that that Jane was describing, working many hours and being very tired. Those are the things that cause us to react. And when we react to our children, we take away from the relationship. We are less and less present. So the work really starts with us. And my invitation is you can consider using this tool to just begin to look within and see what could be happening. And I'm also going to be sharing my contacts as well, and you can reach out. Thank you.
Wow, well put, well put. Thank you, Carol. Jen, take us home. We have a few minutes left, but let us know what tools you have. How do people reach you out?
So, mostly in Worcester and the surrounding cities, everyone has my number. I work with Uhai for Health. We have an office here in Worcester, and a lot of people know about Uhai. We do a lot of program like this one. We do for parents, we do for the youth. We create those safe spaces for the youth to come and talk about what they are going through. And we make sure that when we do such programs, we bring professionals because we don't want to just leave the kids like that. And once we bring the professionals, we are also able to follow up with those young people. And sometimes, if the child comes to me and they let me know that they are not feeling safe and they have suicidal ideations, at that point, I also let the parents know so they can, and I'm also able to meet up with the parents and follow up with them and also refer them to a therapist where they can get more services. So, but I can say that it also has to start from us parents. There is what we call projection. If you can lecture a child for 30 minutes, and believe me, I used to do that because that's what I do better. And so once like even when a child is not doing it well at school, and then you look at the report card and it's like, you think you are going to school for me? It's because we learned it from somewhere. And we don't care to find out why are the grades not good, what is going on at school, what is going on at your life. And right now at Uhai, for every 4 kids that I'm referring to a therapist, it's either the family is broken, either the father and the mother, they are not together, and the kids are left there without knowing, what did I do? Why do I deserve that? And such a parent, such a kid at home, the parent is, of course, feeling the weight of the divorce or the separation. Who is easier to project? It is the child. So the child gets hit by both the separation and by both the anger of one of the parent. And so some of the things that I found very, very helpful is some of the resources that we are having right here in our community. There is a program that I'm doing at the currently called the PM Plus, whereby we meet with a parent for 5 sessions and we talk about problem management. What are the problems that you are presenting and how can we be able to manage those problems? There's also another program we did last year called mindfulness. For me individually, it really helped me to be a better parent, to take a break and to listen even to myself. And it did not just make me a better parent, but a better wife, and also better for me because right now I can sit down, make a very good cup of tea, sit down, sip it in a mindful way, and I can tell how that tea was tasting. Before then, I get to work, I would not even know what the billboards were on the I'll be in the office and I'm like, how did I get here? Because your mind is going like 90 miles per hour. So it's good to pause, it's good to do everything in a mindful way. And if you want to reach us, I'm also going to put my number there and also our website. And thank you so much for coming and for participating.
Nice, nice. And do you remind me, sorry, Gloria, I keep referring to you because you're my teacher on this. There's the book that we did in our Parent Coaching 101 in self-care.
Okay.
The book on self-care. Yes. And there was quite an emphasis on self-care, self-awareness, and I think that's really emerging in this conversation that we're never going to be
it's so
good
important.
in.
Can I just say that, that's where we begin as parents, and that's where we begin in our program, because without energy, we can't do anything. And it's nurturing ourselves. And sometimes it's that 5 minutes, like Jane said, it's just 5 minutes, but it nurtures us as parents. and gives us energy.
Exactly. I remember learning one of the good tools to do is if I come back from work and I'm tired, it's okay to tell the children when I come back, I'll lock myself for 5 minutes.
Yes, you did
Then
that.
I'll come out. It's really,
You did that. You said that was part of
yes.
your experiment. Our students have to experiment for the first 3 months with their self-care. Yeah, yeah. And it worked. And then you
Very
played
good
with
tool.
children. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Grace, over to you. Any final thoughts?
Yes. Just thank you so much, everyone, for being able to speak. I think you guys really did nail everything. Like I was still trying to think about what I was gonna say, but yeah, I definitely think that all these resources, it's important to just take, like Jane was saying, take that moment, utilize them, forgive yourself, and know that it's just one step at a time, and also just recognizing, that sometimes these issues and conflicts, they happen, and it's about what you do going forward, not thinking so much about what I did before. It's easy to beat yourself up, like I think Carol was saying, like, oh, I failed and everything. But yeah, thank you everyone for being here today.
Wow, great. I think we're finishing quite on time, and really grateful to everyone who took time to be part of this. We will share this for others who didn't manage to join. I know for those in the US, it's work time, so some people may not have been able to join. But I take home quite a lot of good stuff here. One, just to appreciate that for a parent in this age, it's quite different. Like Gloria said, it's never been like this, where the source of belonging has shifted. It's no longer just the physical neighborhood, it's now online. It is you're belonging to someone who is in Russia and you're wherever, So and just I think also see from here that parenting has to be very intentional, and that includes being intentional on learning, being intentional on saying, I'm sorry, being vulnerable in all that, and just remaining human in all this journey. And I'm glad Grace was here. You validated a lot of the things we are saying. We will also be happy to hear in the next session saying, sorry, you guys just don't get it, and to hear your own sides of this. And thank you all. So this should be one perhaps in a series of conversations, and really we look forward to parents engaging, finding resources that this team here and many others at the African Institute for Children's Studies, both our offices in the US and in Africa, we're just happy to create this platform where we can make the world a better place and give a smile to a child somewhere. So thank you very much. Have a great day or evening for those of us. And thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye.